Legendary explorers such as La Salle, Joliet, and Father Marquette came to the region in search of trade routes to barter with Native Americans. As more white settlers penetrated the villages, they too fished and hunted for their food and clothing here. Huts displaced tents, stores were built, and the first established village was constructed at 92nd Street and Harbor Avenue in 1813. In 1848, with the building of Michigan and Lake Shore Railroad tracks, the southern marshlands from Englewood to Calumet, running out northwest to a southeast direction along a native trail now called South Chicago Avenue. Like those in back of the yards, the first Mexican workers to settle in South Chicago were recruited by industry to break up the packing house and steel strikes of 1919. Clusters of Mexican men lived in the area around 89th and Green Bay, close to Illinois steel plants, and around 106th and Torrance Avenue near Wisconsin steel plant. As the number of Mexicans increased, however, they expanded their area of settlement. By 1926, there were an estimate of 4,000 to 6,000 Mexicans living in South Chicago. Today, Mexican Americans constitute the second largest minority group in the United States after African Americans. In fact, there are more people of Mexican heritage in Los Angeles than in any city in Mexico except Mexico City. Mexican Americans represent 64% of all Latinos in the United States. South Chicago lacked the large settlement houses like other areas had for organized activities, but several smaller institutions catered to the needs of local immigrant groups. Some were served by the Neighborhood House on Buffalo Avenue, the Friendship Center on Houston, or the South Chicago Community Center on Brandon Avenue, located in the First Congregational Church. Initially, the newly opened YMCA appeared to welcome Mexicans, even housing one as a resident. Soon, however, the other boarders and locals complained and he was evicted. Thereafter, Mexicans, like blacks, were barred from using the YMCA. It was for whites only, and Mexicans were not deemed whites. Polish attempts to keep Mexicans out of certain areas helps explain two patterns of Mexican settlement in the area: their initial tendency to live among blacks and the extreme density of Mexican population. In South Chicago, Poles owned enough real estate to keep Mexican Americans from renting in certain areas, which meant that Mexicans and blacks had to live in close quarters. The city of Chicago annexed Hyde Park, Pullman, Roseland, and South Chicago into its borders in September 1889 in order to comply with population figures needed to bring the Columbian Exposition to Chicago. A year after the annexation, the Calumet area centered in South Chicago had a population of 24,495, of which 13,083 were foreign-born. South Chicago is the place it is today because of the effects, for better or worse, of industry that settled into building this great infrastructure of Chicago and the world. The industry corporations came here in part because of the accessibility of the Calumet Waterway.